Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode. Thanks for tuning in to today's show. It's another good one, and it has to do with two lure comparisons. I've done a lot of videos recently on both the Ned Rig as well as Shaky Heads and other small baits like the jig worm and just different variations of small worms mixed with small jig heads. And I've gotten a lot of feedback from you guys who are really enjoying these videos, but they're bringing up a lot of good questions in the comment section. And one of those questions was, when should you throw a Shaky Head versus, say, just a Ned Rig? And are they interchangeable? Is there a better time to throw Shaky Head versus a Ned Rig? Or has the Ned Rig just completely overtaken the Shaky Head? And it's a really good question, guys. And one that I've got a couple of specifics I want to get into. But before I do that, I got to remind you guys that if you haven't subscribed yet to the channel, do so. It'll get you entered into my monthly prize drawing giveaways. Also, if you're looking for some lake breakdown maps, head over to Fish the Moment website. I've got the link in my description. You can go over there and purchase some of the maps that we've done where we give away 40 GPS waypoints per each lake that we've done, and there's over 200 lake breakdowns to choose from. So chances are we've got your favorite lake. If not, you can get a personalized review. So head over to fishthemoment.com. And that leads us into two of the best fish catching baits that you can use pretty much anywhere, your Ned Rig and your Shaky Head. And I really got to say that I do think that the Ned Rig is starting to overshadow the Shaky Head very much so. I think it's kind of the hot, trendy bait to utilize right now. And there's good reason for that. I mean, this little booger catches a pile of fish. This is one of my favorites, the Little General by Berkley. It just seems like every company right now is coming out with different versions of Ned Rigs, whether they're just straight worms like this or little craws or tiny little creature baits. They're popping up everywhere, and it's for really good cause because they catch fish, lots and lots of fish. They are some of the best baits to utilize for just catching numbers. They catch big fish still, but if you're looking to introduce somebody to fishing, a Ned Rig is a great way to go. Whether you're fishing from the bank or you're fishing from a boat or you're fishing from a kayak, it doesn't really matter. They catch fish and you can fish them just about anywhere. But having said all that, I feel the same way about the Shaky Head. The Shaky Head is really just the Ned Rig, only double in size. And it's been around for a long time. And this, guys, I got to tell you, is one of the #1 tournament producing baits that there have been over the last probably 15 years. If you're a co-angler and you're not throwing a Shaky Head in the back of the boat, you've probably been missing out. Yes, you can say the same about the Ned, but you can't just discard a bait that's had a ton of success over the years. Now, I do have a few times when I prefer one bait over the other. So first I'm going to talk about the Ned Rig. The Ned Rig, and I got to admit, guys, I was late to the party on this. It's really become a bait that I truly love over the last couple of years. But for a year or two when it first got on the scene, I kind of brushed it off because I was such a big fan of the Shaky Head. But my eyes have been opened. I totally see why people love to throw Ned Rigs now. First and foremost, like I said, it catches a pile of fish and you don't get the short strikes. Like during the spawn, if you're fishing a Shaky Head, you miss a lot of fish because they come over, they grab the tail and they swim off with it, and the fish never actually got the hook. You don't get that as much with the Ned Rig. If a fish comes over and picks that up, chances are they've got the hook in their mouth, so your hookup percentages are much better with the Ned Rig during the spawn. Other times of the year, I don't feel like I have the same issue. The fish come over and they eat the Shaky Head just as well. But if I'm fishing smallmouth, guys, the Ned Rig is definitely the way to go. For whatever reason, the smallmouth prefer this little booger over a full-size worm. You can still catch lots of smallmouth on a Shaky Head, but they are not nearly as into a Shaky Head as they are a Ned Rig. And I don't really have the answer for that, other than the fact that I do think that the Ned Rig is a better baitfish imitator, and that leads me into my second reason why I prefer to throw a Ned Rig in some situations. I do feel like this looks much more like a dying shad or a dying bait fish in the water column when you throw it out. Because normally you're throwing a Ned Rig with a pretty light head to the point where it's either going to fall side to side, almost like a tube, or it's going to almost spiral, similar to a tube again, which falls much more like a dying bait fish versus a shaky head, which is going to just fall much more vertical. So if I'm fishing around bass that want to be feeding on bait fish or panfish, I do feel like a Ned Rig's a better bait to go. And you run into that a lot of the times with smallmouth. If you're fishing in the North Country where you've got perch, this is a great perch imitation bait. The same thing if you've got some small shad in some of your lakes. Again, it's a really good bait for that. And that's why, like, if you're fishing down south right now for winter months when a lot of the fish are primarily feeding on shad, I would rather throw a Ned Rig over a shaky head for that reason. I feel like you get a lot more bites on the fall with the Ned Rig versus a shaky head. And then that leads me into one of the reasons why I would prefer to throw shaky head over a Ned. If I know that the fish are on the bottom, and the springtime is a good time to be doing it, and the summer is a good time to be doing it. But if I know the fish are plastered to the bottom, or say, I'm fishing some sort of current, it just seems like a shaky head will get just as many bites. And a lot of times the quality of fish is a little bit better on the shaky head over the Ned Rig. I can't really state why that is, but it just seems like for me, that's been what I've experienced over the years. I also feel like largemouth really prefer a shaky head, a little bit bigger worm over the Ned. You will catch piles and piles of largemouth on the Ned, don't get me wrong, but I feel like there are times when a smallmouth will prefer the shaky head over the Ned, just like a smallmouth will prefer the Ned over the shaky. And when it comes to spotted bass, I feel like they're kind of free for all. You get just as many bites on both. So if it's not a species specific situation, at that point then it goes back to, what am I doing? Is it the forage that I'm fishing? Because I do think a Ned looks more like a shad or some sort of more of a roaming bait fish, like a perch school, versus maybe a bluegill. This looks probably more like a bluegill to me. It's a little bit bigger profile. And if you're fishing in areas where the bluegill lives, so you've got some weed, you've got some docks, shaky head a lot of times is an easier bait to fish. I think they perform better weedless than a Ned Rig does if you get some of the weedless Ned Rig hooks out there. So again, it's kind of a situation as to where I'm fishing. But overall, I don't think that there is a ton of difference between these two baits. Really, if you were to double this in length, you're going to have a shaky head. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. You can interchange the hooks quite a bit. I guess the biggest difference with the shaky head right now is if you want to go big, you can get some really big shaky head style baits, some big hooks, and start throwing them on some deep ledges, that type of thing, where if you go bigger on the Ned, you're just going into like the bigger stickworm sizes, the standard 5-6 inch sizes. But guys, I think they're really interchangeable. I think we're losing track of the shaky head quite a bit just because of the popularity of the Ned Rig has gotten so big the last couple of years. But again, there's reason for that. It catches a lot of fish. It really is a very good bait. It's something you probably can have tied on anywhere. But the same goes for the shaky head. It's a great bait. Don't forget about it. Make sure you still have some in your tackle box, because there are times when they prefer the shaky head over the Ned, just like there's times they prefer the Ned over the shaky head. It's up to you guys to figure out when those are. Hopefully I've given you some good starting points that will help you make a decision between when to throw a shaky versus a Ned. If you enjoyed the video, hit that like button. Stay tuned. We got daily videos coming out with tips and tricks all the time. So stay tuned for tomorrow's video. Thanks for watching, guys.